Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 59 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we'll look back at the weekend that was in Phoenix. Also look ahead to this weekend's race in Atlanta. Plus, we'll have our news and notes segment, followed by our Ask David segment coming up at the end of the show. Dominic Aragon is out this week, and so it's just me and David, a little fireside chat today, as we'll be taking you all the way through today's show, just the two of us. So, Dominic, we're thinking of you, man. He's handling some business right now, but we'll hear back from him next week. But nonetheless, David, as they say, the show goes on.
Yeah, well, I guess it must go on, Tyler. And, man, we miss Dominic. Hey, buddy, hope you're doing well, and hope your family's well. And we're missing you and thinking about you. So we'll see you here next week back on the show. And, dude, what a weekend it was.
Yeah. Let's start out with you, David, on your fronts. You get in the race. I know that was a big relief just to get in the show, and you were running pretty good there for most of the race there. Tell us about your weekend there at Phoenix with the Ticket Smarter 08 Ford Performance car there for SS Greenlight Racing.
Man, our Ticket Smarter Ford Mustang, it seemed to be pretty good in practice. Like what Jason Miller and the guys gave me. We had a good car in practice, and dude, we had to get in the show, you know what I mean? So the pressure was on, and
qualifying was its own ordeal with what happened there. Go ahead and walk us through exactly that situation from your vantage.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think we were going out third in the lineup, you know, and NASCAR waved me on to go out on the racetrack to start our qualifying attempt. And they kind of waved me out there at the last minute, and I heard my spotter say, go, 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 you know, go. I looked up in my rearview mirror, and there was a car right there. So I went through turns 1 and 2 a little bit quicker than you usually do, because, man, when you got a brand new set of stickers on your car and you you know, if you're going wide open into turn 1 there at Phoenix, I mean, it's very edgy, and it has a tendency to come around on you. So you got to be kind of cautious that first corner, just to kind of get the tires wore in a little bit. And then, man, I barely made it off turn 2. And next thing you know, I lost the back of the car. And I think it was just because I looked up in my rearview mirror and I seen a car coming, which you don't usually have that in qualifying. They space you out pretty good. NASCAR has done a tremendous job over the years of spacing us out just perfect. And I really don't know what the confusion was, but I was just, I was pleased and happy to learn that NASCAR was going to allow me to come back down pit road after we flat spotted our tires. You know, you have the front tires locked up and you're sliding sideways, Tyler, and it puts a big old hole in the tire. And luckily, the tire didn't come completely apart and tear up our front fenders. I was able to creep back to pit road. NASCAR allowed us to cool down our engine again and to put another set of Goodyear tires on our race car. And they allowed us to make another qualifying attempt, and not in those, you know, they put us out, spaced us out right this time, and it all worked out, and we made the show. And Tyler, I got to tell you, what a relief it was. You know, we've been doing this a long time, and the way this year has started out with my Brett Baer special report Ticket Smarter Ford Mustang, it's been a challenge, but I feel like that SS Greenlight Racing, my crew chief Jason Miller, and all of us we're figuring this out, going through a little bit of growing pains. But hey, the cool thing was we made the race, and that was awesome.
So tell me about that sequence of when you got called out early, you spin out, and then you're waiting to go back on track. For those of us that were watching at home, you know, I was watching with your wife Kim and such, and we were just confused. It wasn't really explained to us what was going on. We're trying to check on social media. There's just not really any updates. Then finally we hear just out of nowhere, like, hey, NASCAR's taking blame. David's going to get another run. He's going to get to put on fresh tires. And then you lay down a really good lap to get in the show. Was there a point in time when you were saying, I don't know what's going to happen? Were you confident you were going to get that second run, or was there any doubt that maybe NASCAR wasn't going to let you back out?
Well, I was concerned. I mean, you know, we did not cross the start finish line and take the green. I thought that might have played into our favor. It was ironic when I looked up in my rearview mirror and I could see a car, so it was like, hey man, you got to go. You know what I mean? So went through turns 1 and 2 faster than I should have, obviously, and spun out coming off turn 2. Hadn't spun out and qualified. I can't remember last time I ever spun out qualifying, but I felt like when I was creeping the car around so we wouldn't tear up the body, the front fenders with the tires being tore up. I was like, I wasn't sure if was sure. I thought, man, we're going to go home. And they told me on my radio, hey, come down pit road and pull over and stall number 2. And so I did. And man, I was really pleasantly surprised when NASCAR allowed us to bolt on a new set of tires and cool our engine down, and they would let us know when we could go out for a second attempt. I didn't really know exactly what had happened. Usually, like I said earlier, NASCAR spaces out the cars.
Right.
They give you plenty of room. And why they sent me out at the last minute when a car was approaching me, that's not really how they do it. You know what I mean? So I was just thankful and blessed that we did get another opportunity. And I was so thankful when we made the race. And man, we had our Ticket Smarter Ford Mustang was pretty fast.
Well, and to think too of just that sequence of all that could have happened. Not only do you make the race, but when you spun, that the car was okay, that you were still able to replace the tires after the tire went flat and such. I mean, there's so many things that could have happened that could have prevented you from being in the show, but here you were and you made it. You put down a good lap. I mean, it's I don't know if people realize just how hard this is of the race before the race, even just to get into these things. I mean, it was a battle on before the race even started for you.
Man, it was a battle, Tyler. And we're trying to win the first race, which is make the race. So it was a challenge. And there's a country song that I like, Jesus Take the Wheel.
Shout out Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, Jesus Take the Wheel. And I felt like coming off turn 2, when that thing broke loose out from underneath me, all I could do was just lock up the front tires and try to keep it off the wall. And basically I got lucky, and the cool part about it was, we didn't hit anything. And when you're going around the racetrack with flat tires, I had 2 front flats, we're lucky we didn't grind the front splitter off the race car. You know what I mean? So it was just meant to be. We got lucky, and I was just so glad to make our first race. And we had a great lap. Like I said, I had a good car, and everything worked out. But we're just under the circumstances, you know what I mean? I just knew I needed to go out there and do what I know how to do. And I did that, and it all worked out.
On TV, Adam Alexander, friend of the show, was doing the broadcast, and right away he said you made the show. How soon did you find out you made the show?
Well, it wasn't until after my laps was over with. Jason said, hell of a lap, you know what I mean? And I think at the time he said, hey, we're 18th, and I knew that after we spun and NASCAR corrected, said, we're going to let you put a new set of tires on and cool the engine down. That a lot of cars had taken their qualifying attempt. And when he said on the radio, hey man, hell of a lap, we're sitting 18th, I felt like there was only like 7 or 8 cars left to go. So I felt like that we were going to be okay, but I didn't really confirm it until after I got out of the race car. When they parked us in the garage, and you had to get out of your race car and get away from it. And then a couple of people came up to me, hugged me, and a couple of them congratulated me, said, hey, great lap. And I knew then that we were in the show. And man, I
bet you were glad too that the other driver got to do another lap too. That it worked out for both of you. That you got to kind of wipe that behind.
Absolutely, NASCAR just does a tremendous job, and it's nice to know, hey, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes every day, and even a sport or a sanctioning body can make a mistake. And I was just so thankful that allowed myself and the 33 car to make another attempt because of the circumstances. And man, I just was glad knew we had a great race car, and it was awesome to be in the race, man.
You get in the race and you finish 31st, but you were running top 20 most the day there. What did it feel like just to get back in a full race again for the first time in several months?
Well, it was, like I said, it was awesome. And, people don't realize the finish results doesn't reflect how good of a car we had.
Right. Well, that's why we have stage racing.
Absolutely. We started, I think, 29th, and man, when the race started, my Ford Mustang was awesome. I mean, I could go in low, go in high, and at Phoenix it would rotate good. I mean, I could turn that thing and get back to the gas, and it rolled the center so good, and I had great forward traction. And man, I was just kind of picking them off one lap at a time, it seemed like, and it was really good. And I think at one time my crew chief said, "Hey, you're 18th," and you don't really realize where you're at. I just know if there are cars in front of me, my job is to pass them.
Right.
And man, we were making, we were passing a lot of cars, and I didn't really exactly know our where we were. And then Jason came over and said, "Hey man, you're sitting 18th." And I'm like, "We're really 18th?" He said, "Yeah." And he said, "Car looks good. What do you need?" I said, "Well, we need to free it up. I can tell it's going to get tighter and tighter as the race goes on. So we need to keep up with the racetrack. We need to keep up with adjusting the car, because the racetrack's going to change throughout the race." Unfortunately, for us, Tyler, I think in coming to the end of the second stage, we had a right front tire come loose. And, I think there were 10 laps left, and my team just said, "Hey, David, you make the call. You're the one driving the race car." And I said, "I'll try to limp it to the end." Though I ran another 3 laps, and it was shaking so violently that I felt like that we were going to break a hub, break a stud that your lug nuts bolt to, that holds the wheel on the race car. It felt so bad that I just couldn't do it no more. I say, "Hey, if we end up destroying this race car, wrecking it, or the tire falls off, or we break a hub, or whatever it may be, then I only have myself to blame." So I felt like, with how violently it was shaking, that I needed to come to pit road. And when we came down pit road, we lost 2 laps in that process, put on 4 tires, and Jason Miller, my crew chief, calling the shops. They made a track bar adjustment. They made a tire pressure adjustment. And the cool thing about it was, when the stage ended, which was about 6 or 7 laps later, I didn't run hard because we knew what was going on. I wanted to save my tires a little bit.
Right.
But we was able, when the caution on the stage ended, we was able to get a wave around.
Sure.
So we was only down a lap. Unfortunately, when they made that track bar adjustment, my crew chief noticed that one of the pit crew members was going the wrong way on the track bar. So I was already not rolling the center as good as I thought we needed to. We were tight in the center, but they tightened it up even more.
Yeah.
And instead of getting our lap back, the cars that were down a lap, I felt like that we could get by them. And when the caution come back out, that we would be the lucky dog.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the car wasn't rotating in the center of the corner as well. And when we struggled, so man, our Ticket Smarter Ford Mustang was fast. But man, when that tire came loose and we had to pit under caution, it felt like all the tires fell off of it from that point, and we never really could recover. But the positive thing about it was, man, we had a good qualifying run.
Yeah.
Our car raced good. We were marching towards the front. Everything was going great. And then we had a couple of mistakes on pit road that cost us a good finish. But man, I was excited. And I'm looking forward to going to Atlanta this weekend, but it's going to be a great race.
Yeah, we'll talk about Atlanta coming up in just a bit. Before we do, let's look back on the Cup race as Chase Briscoe went to victory lane for the first time in his career. It was his 40th career start, and he led the most laps and really dominated in that final stage, and was able to hold off some really good cars. And that top 3, an unconventional top 3. Ross Chastain second, Tyler Reddick third. What a day for what we've seen of the next era. We've talked so much about the next gen. The young drivers stepped up big time. Ross Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, these guys. I mean, this was a lot of fun to see that next crop really step up with Briscoe leading the way and getting it done.
Man, Briscoe with that Stewart-Haas organization, I mean, he just done a tremendous job. He earned that win. When the caution came out with 5 or 6, 7 laps to go, I don't remember what it was, Tyler, but all the front leaders dove down the pit road. I felt like there was, if I remember right, help me out, there was 2 cautions.
There were, and he held them off both times.
Yes.
And he did the unconventional thing of everyone was saying take the outside lane. He trusted his gut and went with the inside lane both times. It paid off for him. I mean, that's a smart driver to make those veteran decisions there in crunch time.
No doubt about it. But man, he is very skilled. He's one of the best. Xfinity championships, won his fair share of races. Has a great opportunity with Stewart-Haas. And you put him in some good equipment, and man, I was so impressed with him. Ross Chastain, I mean, that guy, we're going to see. I'm willing to say that we're going to see lots of wins from Ross in 2022. And Tyler Reddick, oh my God, that guy. I mean, those 3 guys during the race, first, second, and third, and none of them won a race yet. And I think that we'll see all 3 of them victory lane in 2022.
We've had 4 different winners in the first 4 races, and 2 of them are first-time winners in Cindric and Chase Briscoe. What an interesting start to this season.
It really is just the parity and how close the cars are. You know what I mean? And we're seeing a lot of I don't know if you call it untraditional drivers. A lot of drivers that unconventional drivers that are so talented. And can get the job done and win races, but it's not the drivers that I would think that we're going to be in the top 5, and it's just been incredible the way that we're only a short period into our 22 season, and man, we already got 4 different race car drivers that are pulled into victory lane on the Cup side, and I feel like we're going to see a lot more new blood guys that haven't won a Cup race. I feel like Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, we're going to see a bunch of those types of guys get their first win in 2022.
I think we will. And Chase Briscoe getting it done there for that win for Stewart-Haas. Last year was a down year for Stewart-Haas as an organization. We didn't see Kevin Harvick get into victory lane at all last year, and really just a rebuilding year of sorts. Now this year, Chase Briscoe gets them their first win. The Fords have looked fast all year long. Now they've had their day, and Kevin Harvick ran pretty well too. What do you make of Stewart-Haas and the Fords? You think that with that win, should we be expecting a nice bounce back year from the Stewart-Haas bunch?
Well, I think so. When you talk about Gene Haas, Tony Stewart, I think of the best champions, race winners. And even though, like you said, Stewart-Haas had an off year last year, man, that don't set well with a powerhouse like that organization. I feel like that they're working, doing their homework with their crew chiefs they have, with the engineers they have, and having Ford behind them. It's just a matter of time before Stewart-Haas is back on top. And you mentioned Kevin Harvick. I felt like Kevin Harvick running the top 5 most of the race as second, third place. And I really thought that last caution that he was going to have a shot at a top 3 finish and maybe a win, but he faded a little bit. I think he finished 5th or 6th. But Stewart-Haas has been impressive so far this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see 4 or 5 wins from Stewart-Haas this year.
Kevin Harvick also tied a record on Sunday of the most consecutive top 10 finishes at one track, doing it at Phoenix, 18 straight top 10s at Phoenix, tying the likes of Richard Petty and Dale Sr. That's a pretty good company.
Man, that is amazing. I mean, 18 top 10, 18 season or
18 top 10s in a row at Phoenix.
We know that Kevin Harvick, over the years, I've seen Kevin Harvick dominate when you go to Phoenix, you knew who was going to win the race, Kevin Harvick. I don't know how many wins Kevin Harvick has there at Phoenix International Raceway, but lots. But man, I'm not surprised by that record. And man, isn't it amazing to be in the same record column or be mentioned in the same record, in the same names, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, that's amazing, but well deserved, because Kevin is a great friend of mine, a great race car driver. And I'm not surprised by that stat for Phoenix. And there's other racetracks that he dominates too. So it's good to see Kevin Harvick back up near the front where we're used to seeing him. And I feel like that Stuart Haas has really turned the corner, and they're going to be somebody to be reckoned with in this championship in 2022.
Yeah, I think so. And Kevin is on a bit of a streak where he hasn't won yet. But he didn't win all last year after winning nine races the season prior. Kevin Harvick didn't just forget how to drive or something here. Stuart Haas was going through a transition year, and we've seen how much better they've run. I think we're talking about Kevin Harvick getting back into victory lane at least a couple times this year.
Well, I mean, that's just the Kevin Harvick way. You know what I mean? When you got a team like Stuart Haas and Ford Engineering, Ford Power, just the backing of Ford behind you, I mean, that's a recipe for championships, And like you were saying earlier, Tyler, that last year, that was a down year for Stuart Haas. And it was so surprising to see Kevin Harvick win 9 races in 2020 and to come back in 2021 and not see victory lane. That it set well with that organization. Those guys got busy, and then bringing on Chase Briscoe and
Cole Custer,
and just there's a lot of smart people working at that organization. And when you got drivers like those guys that drive for Stuart Haas Racing, I really feel like Kevin Harvick's going to be back in victory lane soon, and not just one time this year. I feel like he'll have multiple wins, but they're actually giving him, and it's kind of interesting. How can you go from winning 9 races to winning none?
Right.
Something changed, something changed in the body and the aero package. And now we got a next gen race car, you know what I mean? So once they get it figured out, I think, and it looks like that Stuart Haas has it figured out by the race, by the win on Sunday. And Kevin was right there. I just feel like we're going to see more Stuart Haas cars in victory lane in 2022.
So it's never too early to talk about the point standings.
Mm-hmm.
We're 4 races in at this point. And when I looked this up the other day, I was surprised who was leading the points. Do you have any guesses through 4 races who's leading the Cup points right now?
Man, I have no clue. I haven't looked.
It would surprise you. This guy's run well, but I didn't think he would be the point leader.
Right.
Joey Logano.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I wouldn't have thought that if you asked me who I thought was leading the points championship. But man, Joey's kind of a sleeper. You know what I mean? I think, he won California. He won California. Which race did he win? Joey win a race yet?
Joey hasn't won yet.
He hasn't won a race yet, but he's been in the top 10 a lot. You know what I mean? And
he has been quietly consistent.
I guess those are the words I'm looking for. But you can never, ever, ever count out Roger Penske and Joey Logano. They're always going to be a force to be reckoned with. And, and we're talking about Stuart Haas trying to figure out this new next gen car. But, and I think Roger Penske's Penske organization, I think they somewhat got it figured out, but everybody's still trying to figure it all out. But if I was a betting man, I'd bet on Roger Penske any day of the year.
Well, and here's why it surprised me that he's leading the points. Here's just some stats for
you.
2 top 10s. Okay. He's only led 19 laps. Again, we're not discrediting Joey Logano at all. It's just that it was surprising that with no stage wins and 19 laps led, that the way that this has been so much parity, that gets you in the point lead. I mean, Kyle Busch, who's behind him, has 3 top 10s, 77 laps led. Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson each have 2 top 10s. Chase Briscoe's got 2 top 10s and a win now. actually even 2 top 5s for
Right.
Chase Briscoe. Eric Almirola, 3 top 10s. So yeah, just a long ways to go in this point race, but pretty fascinating. That's how the points shape out as of right now.
It really is fascinating, but man, don't you can never count out Joey Logano, man. It just got so much talent, and having Roger Penske organization behind you, he's always going to be a force to be reckoned with week in and week out. And
Yeah.
you can, when it comes down to the chase, that you'll see that number 22 Ford Mustang Pennzoil, sponsorship. They're going to be a car that's going to be part of the chase. I don't know what the statistics are, but he's always a guy that's going to be in the chase in my mind.
And he's on a tear. He's been in at least 5-6 consecutive years, and has a title to his name as well. So yeah, he'll be somebody to watch out for sure.
Absolutely.
This weekend we head to Atlanta. New configuration at Atlanta. That track, it's been a long time since we've seen it repaved, but here we are, David. And the way that you were describing this to me is that basically it's a whole new racetrack.
Man, I have not been there. I've watched a little bit of testing from the Cup cars, and from what I see and what I hear, I'm talking to people. They say, man, there's so much more banking. It's so smooth, and it's like a Daytona and a Talladega. I mean,
Just short.
You just run wide open. It's shorter, but that's how they're describing it. And I was talking to my crew chief, Jason Miller, yesterday. I talked to him some at Phoenix about Atlanta, and he said, we're taking a downforce car. I really thought that was interesting, and not a car that we would take to Daytona or Talladega, because, it's got a lot of downforce built in the car, but I'm hearing you'll run wide open for 15, 20 laps. And when you lose your fuel load and your tires wear out some, you're going to want that downforce. But man, I'm so excited to get to Atlanta Motor Speedway and see the track for the first time live, and to be able to practice for about 15 minutes and figure out what we got to do to make the race. And, and I think, Tyler, you mentioned there's a double yellow or double white line.
Double yellow line, the same rule that applies at Daytona and Talladega that everybody complains about. If you go over the yellow line, you can't advance your position.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because, it's like it must race like a super speedway, because only places where we have double yellow line.
Do you like that rule, by the way?
Well, I like it because it's fair for all, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's a rule that we all got to follow. So I'm good with that rule, and you can't advance your position. You can't go underneath the line and advance your position. I mean,
I know fans hate it, but it's a safety issue.
It's
right?
a safety issue. And, we get it. Well, at times in the race, sometimes you're on the good side of it. Sometimes you're on the bad side of it.
Right.
But all in all, it's fair for all. But man, I am looking forward to getting to Atlanta Motor Speedway and practicing Friday late afternoon. And it's going to be exciting to see Xfinity race there and a Cup race there, just to see how the race plays out, because it's such a different racetrack now. The configuration has changed some, and it's just kind of, it's really a mystery, but it's an exciting mystery. And I'm glad to be going there and racing there.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And Atlanta, with this being a whole new configuration and such, on your end and Xfinity and Cup both, do the notes go out the window from previous years? Is this like going to a new track?
Well, I think it is. You know what I mean? I believe, the loads are different now. You got more banking, so your wheel loads have changed, and nobody's, there's been some testing there, but not a lot of testing there. So, and I think NASCAR are giving us 50-minute, almost, an hour-long practice, which we haven't had since the season opened up in 2022, says a lot about, they want to make sure that, since it's new and there is no notebook, that, gives every racing team, the drivers, the crew chiefs, the engineer, a chance to figure it out within an hour's time, So I think there's a lot of mystery there on the setup itself, but you look at these crew chiefs, these engineers, you look at these racing organizations that we compete against every weekend and week out, they know their stuff, And I feel like that, you know, that there'll be cars, a lot of racing teams that are prepared for it. And I feel like there'll be some that miss it, you know what I mean? And I don't know where we'll stand or sit in that, but it's good to have the practice time to be able, the time on the racetrack during practice to be able to figure it out.
When it comes to the Cup race, the guys to watch for, do we talk about this as if it's a super speedway race? And are we looking at your Ryan Blaney's, Chase Elliott's, Austin Centric's of the world, Ricky Stenhouse? Or do we view it that way, or do you look at your typical favorites of a mile and a half, like Martin Truex or an Alex Bowman or something like that?
Well,
or Kyle Larson?
You bring up a good point there, Tyler,
because those are two different groups.
Absolutely. And I just don't know, you know, there's an unknown factor there, how the racetrack's going to race. You know, I just don't know. It's a mystery. I'm looking forward, me personally, I'm looking forward there to going there and getting that hour-long practice and working with Jason Miller and trying to figure out what we need. Could go fast. You know, I'm hearing it's a wide open. It's like a Talladega or Daytona, but you know, how long can you go wide open? Can you go wide open for 25, 30 laps? I don't know, you know, and you know, is it going to race like Daytona? Is it going to race like Talladega? That being said, then I would tell you, hey, those drivers that we're used to seeing on those super speedways come to the front and control that race. This might be a race where they're going to control. It's the same guys, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., you know, all the strong guys that run on these super speedways.
Almirola, yeah,
absolutely. So it's still a mystery to me. So I'll be paying a lot of attention to not only our Xfinity practice, also the Cup practice, you know, and just trying to educate myself, get as much knowledge, talk to other drivers, just to try to figure out what we need to go fast for the first race to make it into the race. And then to see, you know, to understand how this race is going to play out. It's a mystery to a lot of us.
You know, obviously it takes a lot of track to have what Daytona and Talladega do at 2.5 miles, but it's always exciting. And they put on a show. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of wrecked race cars and such like that. You know, that's not great. But with as exciting as it is, and as popular that type of style racing is, are you surprised that we're just now with Atlanta here starting to see that wide open Daytona Talladega style on a smaller track like this, that this is happening, that it took this long for this to happen?
Well, it's you know, I'm surprised by it, but you know, with adding more banking to Atlanta Motor Speedway and narrowing up the racetrack, I don't know what the statistics are or the dimensions are, but they narrowed up the track. You know, and from what I'm hearing from the guys that did test there, you can run wide open. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. You know what I mean? And so, you know, again, there's a unknown factor for a lot of the racing teams, and an excitement level because of the unknown. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting if it does race at like Talladega and Daytona. Be interesting to have 3 races that race that way. You know what I mean? So, you know, I only think of Daytona and Talladega that you know, when it's plate racing and everybody's on top of each other. It'd be interesting to see at 1.5 miles that everybody's on top of each other, and it's a chess game, and you can run wide open, and there's a lot of drafting because the racetrack is 1 mile shorter than Talladega and Daytona. So it's going to be interesting. And I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I can't wait either. A couple more things. We'll get to our Ask David segment coming up in just a bit. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and get to our news and notes segment this week. And we'll start out with the 7 Spire Motorsports team of Corey Joy, as they were issued a pretty harsh penalty over the weekend. Loss or separation of an improperly installed tire / wheel from the vehicle. That means that crew chief Ryan Sparks and crew members Blaine Anderson and Alan Holman have been suspended for the next 4 Cup Series races. David, I don't think that was intentional by these guys. And now here they are, they're out 4 races. You talk about a costly mistake. That hurts.
Man, you know, if you're Ryan Sparks, you know, I really don't understand some kind of wheel infraction, something happened with the wheels.
Yeah.
And I'm not real sure. Did one of them come off during the race? What happened, Tom?
Yes. One of them came off.
It came off. So, NASCAR might have recovered that tire and wheel, and they might have inspected it and saw something that they didn't like, So, it's a harsh penalty. And I guess whatever NASCAR saw with that wheel, and it's kind of interesting because going back to Daytona, I know that there was a couple of teams that got all their wheels confiscated, and
Yeah.
there was a penalty, a financial penalty involved, but
in the Ford camp. Yeah.
in the Ford camp, but no suspensions. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting that since the season has started, that there's been some issues and some penalties and some fines with people doctoring or working on these wheels. And so I think NASCAR is really trying to get a hold or control of a wheel when you buy a racing wheel for the new next gen race car. I don't think there's any modifications that can be done to it. And I guess the teams are trying to figure out, I don't know what it is they're trying to figure out, but they're trying to figure out something about the wheel, and whatever it is, whatever small modifications they're making to it, it's definitely hurting them with these penalties and these fines.
Right.
To lose your crew chief
4 races.
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, if the crew
And they're
chief,
not a big team either.
no, and if the crew chief would have known that was a possibility, whatever they were doing, or if they were even doing anything at all, obviously they had to been doing something to get this harsh penalty. I think they probably would rethink their decisions. You know what I
Right.
mean? But now that they've gotten caught of doctoring a wheel or all the wheels, man, that's a costly penalty.
So tell me this, and you may not even know this, I don't know. But when that type of thing happens, is that more about competitive balance or safety, or is it both, or do we not know?
Well, I can't answer that question, and that's a legitimate question. From a competition standpoint, just from the competition side, it's usually us as a racing team and competitors, engineering's, crew chiefs, crew members, drivers. We're always looking for that edge.
Mhm.
You're always trying to figure out an edge. Maybe can you take the tire off quicker? Can you bolt it on quicker? Is it lighter? I would say it was more of a competition thing than a safety issue. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
the racing team,
Right.
maybe through NASCAR's eyes, it was an infraction on, safety. And so it'd be interesting to hear what the fines are, what they did to the wheel, and kind of go from there. But I would I can only imagine whatever they were doing to the wheel was to help enhance maybe having a tire, changing that tire and wheel quicker, or or something like that, enhance their performance. And that's competition.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
NASCAR might have saw it as a safety hazard,
Mhm.
but from the racing team standpoint, I would say it was to, it was to help competition, speed something up.
Yeah. Tyler Reddick, we mentioned at the top of the show how well he raced there at Phoenix, and the good start to the season he's had, 3 top 10 finishes. Richard Childress was asked about his contract, says that he is signed through the end of next year. And you look at the way that he started his career, and prior to this year, the thing that we talked about with Tyler Reddick was that he was out driving his equipment, that he was getting the most out of it, that Richard Childress that team wasn't quite providing him
Right.
as good at what he could have gotten elsewhere and such. And when you look at his future and such, he's going to have a lot of suitors, a lot of interest. We know that Stuart Haas has got openings soon. Joe Gibbs potentially could have openings soon. There's some really good race cars that he could find himself in. I would think that Richard Childress, that team's got to do everything within their power to keep this young guy, because there'll be a lot of teams that would love to have him right now.
Well, it's interesting to hear you speak about that, because if I personally was Richard Childress, I'd lock that kid down, because man, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, what he did last
What do you
year,
want?
Yeah, I mean, he's the real deal. I mean, and I think he outperformed his equipment last year, no doubt about it.
Right.
And the Xfinity championships, the Xfinity wins, and man, he's been a force to be reckoned with. He almost made the chase last year, or did make the
He
chase.
did.
He made the chase, and his teammate did not make the
Right.
chase. And man, he was impressive last year.
Hmm.
And now we kick off our season, and we're 4 races into our new season. And man, he hasn't, he's going about what he does, and that's race that car as hard as he can. He's always near the front, and he had a shot at winning the race Sunday. So Tyler Reddick, I would say, if Childress don't nail him down, there's a chance he could lose him really quick.
Yeah. Last one for you on the news and notes front. This weekend, your home track, Texas Motor Speedway, is going to have IndyCar racing. Jimmy Johnson returning to oval tracks once again. He's made it known he's pretty excited about that, in a place that he's had a lot of success at Texas Motor Speedway. That's one part of it. But the other part of it, too, Roger Penske, who now owns IndyCar, in case people aren't aware, has said that their contract with Texas Motor Speedway is up after this weekend's race, and that they're exploring all options. They could sign a new contract. They could potentially go to the Milwaukee Mile, where you've been before.
Right.
How important is it for Texas Motor Speedway to have that IndyCar date in addition to NASCAR and some of the other events that they have all year?
Well, I think it's great. The Texas Motor Speedway has hosted IndyCar races ever since the place opened up, and man, I've seen, and all my other friends and people that are from Texas, we've seen some hell of some like Daytona, Talladega type racing with IndyCars at Texas Motor Speedway. It's been incredible the kind of racing they've had there over the years with the IndyCar cars. I'm sad to hear that, that this is the final year on their contract. And what reason why I'm saying I'm sad, because it'd be kind of, a lot different if there was not an IndyCar race at the Texas Motor Speedway, because there's been one since the place opened up. And but looking at the racing, now that we NASCAR, we're running the sticky stuff on the racetrack, the PHG and PH1, and then there's another form of it, and I forget what they call it, but they came to Texas years ago and started spraying that stuff in the second lane all the way up to the wall. And last year, when I was at the IndyCar race and saw a great race, it was more of a follow the leader. There was some passing being done, but not the type of passing, Tyler, that I've seen in the past with these Indy cars. And then I started asking some questions like, what's going on here? And I had heard that the Indy car, the Firestone tires that they run on, is not very compatible with with the sticky
PJ1,
with the PJ1 stuff. And even though the PJ1 has been sprayed on there over the years, it's still there. And it's kind of interesting that the Indy cars, it's more of a follow the leader, get a lot of give and take, and it's not the side-by-side 3-wide that we're used to seeing in the past IndyCar races at Texas Motor Speedway. So, hopefully from my standpoint, I just, I know there's a huge amount of IndyCar fans in the state of Texas, and I hope that they can come, that Roger Penske and IndyCar racing re-ups with the Texas Motor Speedway, because it's always been part of the Texas Motor Speedway's of season of one of the races, major races that are there. And it'd be sad to see in 2023, if that contract's not re-up and there's not an IndyCar race. I'd hate for the Texas Motor Speedway to lose that IndyCar race, because it's been quite entertaining over the years.
How about Jimmy Johnson, his oval debut at a place that he's had a lot of success in NASCAR at? I'd be surprised if Jimmy doesn't run well on Saturday night.
Man, I love to see Jimmy Johnson run well, man. He owned the Texas Motor Speedway. I mean, Jimmy's done everything that you could possibly do in NASCAR with the 7 championships and all the wins and everything. And it's cool to see him jump over to the IndyCar side, and And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but this is the first year that Jimmy's going to run ovals in the
Yeah, this is
IndyCar.
going to be his very first oval race.
I mean, I'm excited for him, but you know what? I would caution everybody that it's not a stock car. I mean, he could jump in any stock car. Obviously, that number 48 Hendricks Chevrolet. I mean, that was unstoppable for
Right.
forever, and I don't think what he did will ever be matched in our sport. But to jump into IndyCar, which is a totally, completely night and day different type of race car, I wish him well. I hope to see him win, and I hope to see him run good and have a great race. But reading some of the comments and seeing how he's gone about his early IndyCar career, he's been really calculated on how he's doing it. A lot of testing, getting ready to go run a race. But man, I hope Jimmy Johnson shines Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon during the IndyCar race here at Texas Motor Speedway. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I think so too. I said one more. I lied. I got one more news and note for you on the motorsport front. News coming out this week that F1 is close to a deal with Las Vegas for a Grand Prix beginning next year. So this year, Miami was added in addition to COTA. And then next year, you're going to have Vegas, COTA, and Miami. And no other country has even more than one F1 race. So how about that? I mean, just that's big for motorsports in general here in the U.S. to get 3 F1 dates. That's unheard of. That's a win-win for everybody.
No doubt about it. And to have F1 so interested in the United States and to have COTA host Formula One races for the last 3 or 4 years, however long it's been, and then to have F1 come back or, and do an F1 race in Miami, and now hearing they want to come to Las Vegas, it really says a lot about our country.
Right.
It says how strong of a market this is for Formula One racing.
Right.
And it just says how powerful all of motorsports is in America.
Well, and we were just in Vegas. It's a great motorsports community. They'll support it.
Oh, absolutely. So I just think it's awesome. And I think anybody involved in any type of racing to have F1 to possibly have 3 races in America in 2023. I mean, we all benefit from it because there's more eyes watching racing in America. There's more television exposure in America for auto racing, even if it is Formula One.
Right.
I just think it's wonderful for the whole, the whole country of the United States of America to have more auto racing. But it just says a lot about our company and what America thinks about auto racing.
Well,
they love it.
And NASCAR's made it no secret they want to run street courses in the future. Maybe it's a combined weekend with IndyCar or F1 that gets them that, and those cities get a 2-for-1 deal where they don't have to build a track out twice or something. I mean, maybe that's how you make a street race in NASCAR happen or something. We'll see. But,
well, Tyler, just hearing you talk about it, I mean, anything's possible after seeing the LA Coliseum to having a NASCAR race there in the LA Coliseum.
But we've already seen successful NASCAR and IndyCar doubleheader weekends. So who knows?
Absolutely. I would just share with you that, having a NASCAR race through a city, a road course, is not something that, would be my first choice. You know what I mean? I just don't, our stock cars, our NASCAR race cars, I mean, for me, they belong on road courses, Watkins Glen, COTA, Sonoma, Texas Motor Speedway, Atlanta Motor Speedway, Bristol Motor Speedway. I'm not so sure if they belong on a city course in a major city. Now, would it be cool for NASCAR to try it? I think it would be, and it'd be kind of cool to be a part of it. But, for me, I think we ought to keep them on all these super awesome racetracks we have across America and keep them on the road courses that are built for it. You know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to see what lies in the future.
Yeah, certainly so. Time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us on Facebook, Twitter, and by email. Facebook, David Starr Podcast, Twitter @Starr Podcast, and by email, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. And we got a couple in the inbox this week. And this first one, it comes from Gary. Gary wants to know, David, it's March Madness time. Have you filled out your bracket?
Man, I keep up with March Madness because of you, Tyler. You know what I mean? The other night ago, I was in Phoenix and you were here in Dallas, Texas, and you called a game,
I
a
did.
championship game,
Conference USA, yeah.
Conference USA, and
UAB clinched the spot. Had the national radio call for that. That was a lot of fun. Great time.
And you're keeping me posted on the teams that have a legitimate chance on winning March Madness, and be kind of interesting to see who ends up in the Final Four. But I'm so busy with our NASCAR stuff and racing school business and that kind of stuff. I hadn't really paid much attention to it. You're kind of my ears and my and let me know what's going on with it. But man, I know people are super excited all over the country, and I hear a lot, hey, March Madness, and I hear a lot of talk, and it's everywhere. So I'm engaged because of you, buddy. So to answer your question, Gary, I don't really know if I could pick a bracket because I'm kind of clueless on it. I'd have to reach over to Tyler and say, Tyler, help me out with it. I just haven't followed it long enough or been interested in it enough to follow it. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, here's what you need to know. This weekend, there's a couple of games actually down the road from us in Fort Worth,
Right.
the Dickies Arena. I'll be out there. My school where I went, Kansas, is playing. Baylor's going to be out there. Baylor and Kansas are both 1 seeds. And that's the first time the Big 12 Conference has had multiple 1 seeds since 2003.
Wow.
And Texas Tech's really good this year. Texas isn't great.
Right.
But those kind of your local connections of some sort.
Well,
Should be a lot of fun.
Well, you know how I am. I'm all about our local Texas teams that are involved. Baylor, Texas Tech.
Our friend Mark Tate's a big Texas Tech guy.
Absolutely. So hopefully we'll see a Texas team in the Final Four. I'm not real sure if that's going to happen just from the rumors and hearing people talk. There's not your favorites, but be kind of cool to see one of our Texas teams in there. But Gary, to answer your question, man, I couldn't answer your question.
Okay. Next question from the inbox. This one comes from Chester. Chester wants to know, David, as a Texan, what does Davy Crockett mean to you?
Man, that's lots of history. You know what I mean? That's it's funny being, growing up here in Texas and being named David, people used to call me David Crockett when I was a kid, so, but I really, and I should know a little bit more about my Texas history, but I don't, you know what I mean?
You couldn't teach us about the Alamo?
I couldn't teach us that much about the Alamo. I spent a lot of time in San Antonio, and it's always a great place to go visit. And I had to say that I've been there, 12, 13, 14 times. I love the history of our state, but Davy Crockett, it's he obviously, obviously big general, whatever, you know what I mean? But that's about it. I don't know that much about him, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Educate me, Tyler.
The history on the Alamo, they didn't win.
Absolutely.
But they did eventually get, independence,
right.
And joined America, and since the rest is history. But the Alamo still stands. I love the Alamo. I mean, that's if you go to San Antonio, forget the Riverwalk. That's a dirty creek. You got to go to the Alamo.
Absolutely, man. It's amazing how they preserved the Alamo, and man, I love it.
It's like not as big as what you.
No, man, and to see what it was like way back then, and to see it today, to see it out in the wilderness, just a fort.
Yeah.
And now to see all the city and all the stuff surrounding it,
yeah.
It's kind of interesting from a geographical standpoint, what it looked like back then. But man, very interesting. I like I said, I love Texas history. I wish I knew a little bit more about Davy Crockett, but I don't.
There you have it. That's our Ask David segment this week. As always, make sure to send in those questions, and we'll answer the best ones on the show each and every week. Before we get out of here, David, tell me about the next couple of days ahead for you as you head out to Atlanta.
Yeah, just I've been I've been on the phone a lot with my crew chief talking about the Atlanta race, going over, the car we're running, some setup stuff, and talking about how we think it's going to flow and what changes that we have in store. Spending some time at our racing school race shop, the Team Texas High Performance Racing School race shop.
TeamTexas.com for more information.
Absolutely. TeamTexas.com. Come feel the speed, drive a real NASCAR race car. TeamTexas.com. But, doing that, flying out of here Thursday evening, headed to Atlanta. But I've got some, trying to catch up from being gone from Phoenix last week. But man, looking forward to getting back in my Ticket Smarter Ford Mustang for the race next week. Hopefully everything goes as good as it went in Phoenix. And, I'm excited about Atlanta, and I know a lot of the race fans are, because there's a lot of unknowns with the racetrack that's reconfigured and it has a lot more banking. And you hear races and drives like Talladega and Daytona. How is that possible? So I'm excited for the weekend, and man, I hope everybody tunes in to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, certainly. And speaking of the racing school, I want to mention this real quick too. You had the racing school one recently that involved some wounded warriors. That was really cool. Kind of one that grabs you by the heart, huh?
No doubt about it. My Uncle Mike, who started Team Texas and who turned it into one of the best NASCAR racing schools out there in the country, for I think 23 years, Halo for Freedom would bring in wounded warriors, a war hero that had some messing a limb, or some major paralyzed, or had some type of major injury to themselves, and to see their spirit, their pride in the country, and watch them, parachute into the racetrack, Texas Motor Speedway, and to have somebody with their prosthetic legs go take them to them, and them to walk over to pit road, get in a race car and drive the race car 10 laps at 150 something miles an hour. Man, if that don't, make your heart beat, or, if that don't tug on your heartstrings, man, you don't have a heart. You know what I mean? It's amazing. I got to spend a day with these heroes a week ago, and to hear some of their stories and to see their conditions they're in. Some are paralyzed. Some are missing an arm. Some are missing a leg. Some are missing both legs.
Yeah.
And to see their spirit and their heart and their enthusiasm for our country, and just their just wittiness and just their love of our country, it inspires me. But it's just man, it was an amazing event, and something that I'll never forget. And it's amazing that my Uncle Mike has done this for 23 years and put a lot of smiles on a lot of war heroes' faces, and they love coming to drive the race cars, and it was an honor to be part of it last week.
Yeah, that's incredible, and glad you had a great time, and glad that we can recognize those veterans there. For more, if you want to feel the need for speed, check out teamtexas.com for those dates. The public dates are listed on the website, and corporation dates are also available as well. We got to go. We'll see you out in Atlanta, and Dominic will be out there. You guys will have a good time. We'll hold things down here in North Texas, and we'll be back here next week as we'll be getting ready for COTA next week there in Austin. So we will see you all then. We'll put the checkered flag out in this episode. As always, subscribe to Let's Go Racing with David Starr. New episodes out every Wednesday. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Hit that like button and leave us a 5-star review. Don't leave us one at all. And we'll see you right back here next week. David Starr and Tyler Jones, thanks so long. Thanks for joining.